As you have been introduced, my name is Chris, and today I'm going to be talking about our outreach program and how we use, to be honest, we will use IHP once we haven't fully finished the system yet, but we will be using IHP to teach kids Elm. So we're going to talk about this sort of, I'm going to just use this to talk about our program, and then also the sorts of requirements we needed, and then how we used IHP and our kind of experiences using it, and then I'll do a little demo at the end. So just a little bit about me. I'm a fifth-year software engineering student at McMaster University. So that's in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, just about an hour from Toronto, or about an hour, and also about an hour from Niagara Falls. I'm very interested in computer science and STEM education. So I've been volunteering for this program called McMaster Start Coding for over 5 years. And I've also been working on other various research projects with computing and software professor, Dr. Christopher Anand. So we do lots of different things related to computer science education, image processing, compilers, assembly languages, stuff like that. We love Haskell. We use it for lots of things in the group. Pretty much everything I mentioned, we use Haskell in some capacity. And I'm fairly new to IHP. I only started using it about 3 months ago, and only really seriously in the last month and a half or so. Okay, so a little bit of background of our program. So we've been teaching students for over a decade in the Hamilton, Ontario, Canada area. So we go and offer free classes to teachers in the area. Of course, we've been online for the last year and a half, but here are some pictures from before that. And we've taught over 25,000 students in the last 5 years, and we've visited almost 1,000 classrooms. And we're supported by the Dean of Engineering. As I mentioned, we're overseen by Dr. Anand. And we're run mostly by undergraduate and graduate volunteers, and some are research students. And we're focusing on in underprivileged youth in particular, and girls, getting them interested and empowering them to see themselves in STEM careers, basically. And we've published several papers and posters and conference things like that with our teaching practices, our tools and experiences. So a little bit about our curriculum. So we focus on algebraic thinking, which has been shown to be a big determinant of high school success. And we use Elm we teach Elm using graphics, animations, games. We have our graphic SVG library that we use. So basically within 20 minutes, we can teach them enough to get started drawing basic shapes on the screen, and they have to move them around using knowledge from math. So Cartesian coordinate systems and stuff like that. So they can't just draw, they have to actually write out the code and use their math knowledge and work on their math knowledge to be able to move shapes around and compose them. But we basically, we can go right down to grade 4 or 5, which is 9 and 10-year-olds, and they can get started within 20 minutes. So it's actually pretty accessible. We've been getting into teaching design thinking, where students develop unique solutions to varied problems. We have other projects that are more like in the experimental phases, so using 3D graphics. So this right here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, hopefully you can. This was created by a camp, a bunch of students at a camp recently. So they created this little scene, this little like Halloween scene, I guess. And then we also have a new music creator where they can use Elm to make music as well. And we're not for profit, but we did start getting into some paid camps just to pay like our summer students. So where students work in teams, and they work for like a whole week to complete some sort of task. So that these are some examples, either making music or making a 3D scene or a game or different things. And we can use Elm to teach things like definitions, functions, user interaction. And we do it all visually with graphics. So it's really actually quite easy to teach what a function is when it's just varying the color of a flower, for example, rather than something abstract like numbers. Okay, so here's a little bit of evolution to our system. So I'll get into the IHP stuff soon. So installing software on school board computers when we go to schools is actually a very difficult and annoying process. You have to get in touch with the teacher ahead of time, and they have to get in touch with their technology people. In many cases, they have to approve whatever gets installed. So we needed something that was basically on the web where we could just visit the class and get them to log in right away. So we created this thing called macoutreach.rocks. And basically at the beginning, it was just for them to be able to compile Elm in the browser. As we went along, we added user accounts, and our activities began getting more and more complex. So we needed more and more flexibility, but we were kind of just hard coding things, to be honest, as we added more activities. And then COVID kind of obviously forced all of our teaching online. And so we needed better distance learning and collaboration tools. I'm seeing some things in the chat. Is that, yeah, I'll handle questions at the end. I have a slide for that, of course. Yep. Okay, so here's our original system. This is the login screen anyway. The original system was written in Haskell using Way, WebSockets, and with a JavaScript sort of HTML front end. And we used STM for threading. So to be honest, we were using pretty low-level libraries. And but at the beginning, that was fine because we had a fixed number of slots that they could, like activities they could use. And so we didn't really need anything too complex. But then as our sort of requirements changed, and also with COVID and wanting to increase our distance learning, we needed something that was purpose built. And as I mentioned, we love Haskell, but among lots of other things, we love it for its type safety, its reliability, and our old server that we wrote, sort of more manually, I would say, it runs for, it's been running. I think I put the server up at the beginning of the summer in May, and it hasn't crashed. It's been running the whole time. So we love that, that sort of reliability. But we didn't really love the available options for web frameworks. A lot of them are kind of overcomplicated and bloated using these monad transformers and all that stuff. And it's just, yeah, it's a lot of complication we didn't feel that we needed that, or wanted that. So we need something that could support our increasingly complicated system. We often have, 200 plus students using this at once when we're visiting classrooms and having camps and stuff. And also our system is used by many users of different types. So things like students, mentors, junior mentors, teachers, and they all interact in various ways. Enter IHP. So here are some of the features of the new system. So we have obviously code compilation using Elm. That was there from the beginning, but we have a hierarchical group system for organizing users and controlling access to different things, and allowing them to collaborate. So they can publish their code you can call sharing as well. And import, I'll show a demo of that, how you can create one module and import it into someone else's. There's code history and diffing, which I don't think is in the version I'm going to show you yet. It's kind of new. And of course, now they can create and name modules instead of using fixed slots. There's an admin panel for managing users, a mentor panel for mentors to be able to see users' code and help them with it. So we have mentors that are undergraduate mentors. We might also have high school mentors. And then soon, one of the things Varun's going to be working on, or some of the things like gamification, user customization, so like profile pictures, more design thinking support, and then more distance learning features. So I guess this is just my sort of opinion with using IHP so far. I promise that no one at IHP, at Digitally Induced, paid me to say any of this stuff. We started developing the requirements in the ER diagram, and I would say early to mid-July. And then, so July, I believe it was July 20th was when I first actually started translating the ER diagram to the sort of using the schema editor on IHP. To be honest, I surprised even myself how fast I was able to implement the requirements. I was able to contribute some of these features back upstream into IHP, so things like the pagination module, and then I have other things planned that I also want to contribute. And then in my opinion, I find that IHP is a good balance of sort of advanced Haskell features to make the code nice, but then not confuse new users. So I think that's kind of neat how it is actually using some of the most complicated, like if you've seen the list of language features that are turned on for IHP, you'd be a little scared, but you guys use them, I think, in a good way to actually make the code simpler. And I think it's a good bridge for people with Haskell experience and people with front-end experience. So this term, we're going to have people working on this project that have only HTML and CSS experience, and then some people have a lot of Haskell experience. So putting the two together, I think IHP lets you bridge those two, I think. And yeah, I'll show you the system that I came up with. Basically, it was just me developing for about 4 weeks. And so I'm by no means an HTML or CSS expert either. So you'll see kind of how fast I was able to go. And then also a lot of Haskell communities I found can be sometimes hard to approach. You need to know lots of things about monoids or category theory to even begin contributing. But I felt that, IHP is a good sort of bastion within Haskell, where it's very accessible and welcoming and approachable. All right, so why don't I show a demo? So I'm gonna switch over to the screen here. All right, so here's basically the screen that users will see when they log in. So I'm going to actually create a new module. Now, a lot of this, of course, this is still, as you can see in the URL, it's called alpha.macareach.rocks. So, it's pretty early, but a lot of stuff is working already. So I'm going to create a new module. Let's go through it together. I'm going to create an animation slot, for example, and I'll call this, I don't know, IHP Meetup. Create that module and open this up. And so what they're greeted with here is basically they have a screen where they can type their code, they can compile it, and over here will be the result. So why don't I just quickly, I'm not going to go into details of our graphics library too much, but maybe I will put some sort of, I don't know, just like a blue circle in the middle, just so you can see something there. There we go. So there's my blue circle. And then I could actually then publish this module. Well, actually, why don't I actually give this a name? So my circle. Give that a name. And then I can actually publish this. So I can give myself, maybe I'll just give myself the ability to, let's see, okay. So I can filter by my name, and this is, actually forget which one I'm logged in as. Mentor Chris, okay. So I'll just share this with myself and give myself the ability to import it. So I can publish that. So it's saying that this module is published in import mode, so that's good. And what I'll do is I'll go back and make another one. So another L module here, if it's gonna work. Yep, there we go. I'll just call this IHP Meetup 2. And I'll create that. And so you can imagine those were two different users. One person would make a module, maybe someone makes a flower, and then someone wants to make a field of flowers. So then I can actually come here and import this module. So I can see here are all the different modules that have been shared with me, whether shared with me specifically or shared with groups that I'm a part of. And then I can import this, and that just kind of makes that makes that module available to me. So then in Elm, I can actually say mentor Chris .ihp meetup .my circle. And with any luck, I will be able to use the circle from the other module. So that's a demo of sort of the user facing some of those features. There are some other things here. And then in terms of the admin panel, so we've just developed the ability to manage users here, manage groups. So for example, we have a summer 2021 group, and then that has subgroups. So we also have a hierarchical structure of this so that we can put, for example, we have school boards, and school boards can have schools, and then schools can have teachers, and different people have admin access to these different groups. So it's kind of this group system is something that will allow us to have different users with different kind of access to things, and sort of manage that, and also allow groups to collaborate when they're working in a camp, for example. And one last thing, I guess, is the mentor panel. So if I go to the mentor panel, as a mentor, I can see all the modules that have been compiled, and I can even filter by group. So if I'm a mentor of the 3D camp and I only want to see use the modules from that camp, I can do that. So this allows people to, I can actually go in and see. So for instance, this is someone else's code. I can open this up. I can compile their code. I can also, the chat doesn't actually work yet, but they can ask questions and we can respond to them on that. Oh yes, the 3D graph, the 3D one does take a while to compile. Let's see. It's actually not the compilation that takes a while. Seems like it takes a while to set up the graphics in the browser. Is it gonna work? Maybe not. Anyway, okay, well, as you can see, it is, as I said, it's very early, so maybe it's just not gonna load for me. Maybe my internet isn't great. Okay, well, sorry about that. But we will go back, and I guess I'll just go back and ask if there are any questions. I think I'm pretty much done. Well, that's not good. Okay, we time out. Yeah, great way to end the demo, but yeah, I guess I'll open it up to any questions that people might have. And yeah, thanks everyone.
I think Ariadne had a question, and also there was a question by Conrad in the chat. He asked, what other Haskell frameworks you considered before going to IHP?
Yeah, so we let me think of the so one thing we looked into was yes, I think Yasod is called, where that's one we considered, but what we really wanted was sort of this idea of being able to have the design, I guess, be part of the framework in a way. So with that one, you had to do a lot more sort of Haskell coding in order to make your schema and that kind of thing. And I guess what we liked about the IHP was how everything was kind of built into that, in terms of the database being built in and then generating types from that and that kind of thing. And I'm actually struggling to remember what other ones, but as I mentioned, originally we were just using really low level like way and stuff to actually pretty much, it was almost like raw sort of HTTP requests. Yeah, we found Yastod pretty bloated, and there was a lot there. Of course, it's powerful, but not necessarily super accessible or easy to learn. And then also, yeah, just a lot. Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on.
So I missed part of your talk because my internet connection sucks. So I'm sorry. I
No
switched
problem.
to my Mac, so it's easier. Maybe you told us about it while I was away. So my question is, two questions. One question is, how accessible is it for like blind people, for example? Is that a thing? Could handicapped persons use it?
That is something that we have actually thought about it, but to be honest, haven't made too much progress on. But it's a very good question because it is so visual in terms of what we teach. That is something that's definitely something we've considered. So Dr. Anand, actually, I see he's joined. He did actually work with a blind student for a semester, and I'm not sure how far you guys got in terms of that. Do you want to maybe speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, basically, we wasted a lot of time talking about what we could do to improve what we have. So this student, is not a normal student. He's gone through all the barriers that are there and finished a degree in software engineering or computer science, software engineering, I think. But what we finally decided was we should be basing, we should have a totally different environment for visually impaired students, and it should be based on music rather than on graphics.
Whoa, that is so cool. Okay.
But but so he didn't know much about music. I, knew a tiny bit more. Yeah.
Not for that use case, but it's a clever idea.
So so it turns out that, other kids would like music as well.
I could imagine.
And it made sense to try to develop it for them first, just so that we know something. So we started a project. We recruited a violist, music teacher, composer, and as a volunteer. So she's put in a lot of hours, don't even know how many. And a number of students have put in a lot of hours. So we created something, I don't know if you've seen the Shape Creator, but we now have what we call the Music Creator, and you can compose one measure at a time, and then it shows you what the code would be. You can copy that over. So we also have another project to create a structure editor so that people would modify the abstract syntax tree instead of writing the code. So I think Chris thinks that, Chris is skeptical of that. I don't know if that would be the right thing to say, Chris, but for beginners, I mean, we do have a tool called Elm Junior for the iPad, and the teachers have seen it and said, now I could learn how to code. So we think it has a lot of potential, but we just need to do a better job of having a better runtime system. So part of it would be that we wouldn't actually need the compiler anymore on the server. So we'd really reduce our server bandwidth. And in fact, it could run then as an independent app, even if you lost your internet connection.
Like a PWA using?
Server.
I'm going to quickly interject here.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
This is a very interesting talk, and feel free to continue this later. We're right after the talks, we're going to have a session where we can also split into smaller groups, so you can go down any rabbit hole that you want. But
sorry.
That's all good. That's all good. That's what we're here for. But yeah, in the interest of time and for the people that might not be able to stay as long as they want, let's continue with Philip's talk. He is developing a CO2 database with IHP and is going to tell us a bit about that. Let's go.
Hope you can all see my slides now. Good. So, yeah, my name is Philip. I'm a co-founder of Optivagate. It's a very small software development company. We do individual projects for companies around us in the area. I'm from Lucerne, Switzerland. That's also where the company is founded. And I have an education originally in communications and IT. And later on, I still was making a second education in user experience. And I always love to build applications. And actually, I'm not even really the hardcore programmer, because I normally was like product owner, or I was designer, or I was UX responsible. And I was like, I was always interested in code, but I never really wrote a lot of code. Actually, in the last few months and years, I really started to write more and more code. Another topic that I'm really interested in is the climate change or climate crisis that's coming upon us. Or it's always something, or as a child, I was like, I said, my first car is going to be electric, and my mother laughed, and she was right, it wasn't electric. But yeah, so it was always something that somehow, it was something that's concerned me, and it still does. And just like from technical knowledge, what I heard, I learned Turbo Pascal originally as a teenager. Later when I was studying, I learned Java. And at the company now, most people write in JavaScript or TypeScript. We have some that write in Java, but no more so much. And that's actually also where I started to really develop more myself. Before, I was just like once in a while studying, and otherwise not much. And somehow this JavaScript thing was a little bit special for me, because it was the first time I came in contact with this functional programming thing. I never really knew of it before. I was always developing object-oriented style. And this like more just lead me to Haskell in the end. Like it was like I was using all kind of frameworks inside of JavaScript to have like more functional way of programming, like Lambda, maybe some know it. And after FPTS I was using, and eventually I thought maybe I just should learn Haskell. And that's actually like a little bit the start of this whole journey. Then what is CO2 DB, or like what's the vision? Because it's not really finished. the vision is that I would like to build something that's like a little bit that shows a little bit the CO2 footprint of all kinds of things. So like you could think like of IMDb or EV database org just for CO2 footprint of things. And first of all, I'm surprised that this doesn't exist yet, because like I was looking for myself always again, like how much CO2 does it take to do this, and how much CO2 does it take to do that, and there is no database for that. So that was actually surprising to me. I don't know if maybe just nobody's really interested in this, but normally when you think of something, you're never the first person to think of something. So this is really special. But even if there would be already 3 platforms around, I would think I anyway would try to do it, because it's always good to yeah, I think it doesn't hurt if there are other people that try to solve the same problems. I'm trying to do this open source, so everything that I'm developing here, I'm just doing, it's on GitHub, and I hope that once there will be maybe a little community around this for like contributing maybe like data for CO2 and maybe contributing code, anything. And I would like that all the sources of the CO2 footprint are of scientific studies. I don't want that this is just like people write anything and yeah, because it would not really be then a reliable source. So I would like it really to be like, if you want to know something, you can see there and you can actually see the source where this number comes from. And I'm actually developing this in my free time. So about 2 years ago, I said I want to work 4 days a week. Actually in Switzerland, it's pretty common in the meantime. But I just like thought, I would like to do something else with my time. And so I started to think about this whole climate crisis thing and how could I do something. And actually for the first year, I did something a little bit different. And now I'm actually about maybe for a half a year or less, I'm now developing this CO2 database. Here you can see, I think I'm anyway going to make a demo. At first I thought it's so simple, I don't even need to do a demo of this. But I'm going to maybe quickly show you how it works after. So, and then maybe the question, why do I even do this? I just think this is such an important topic. And on many products and on many commercials, you can see like 100 grams CO2 per kilometer or so and so much CO2. And I think most people don't know how much CO2 is 1 kilogram or 100 grams or 1 ton of CO2. They have no idea what that means. Is that much? Is that little? And I also think it's very hard to fight now this climate crisis if you don't even know what the CO2 really is, where it's coming from, and if you don't have really a good understanding of what it is. And yeah, I just want to show the different CO2 footprints of different kind of things, and that you can also understand the relation, like some things that make surprising little CO2 and other things that make surprising much CO2, and that if you understand this, maybe you can also like make choices, or you can maybe influence people, or you can maybe influence companies. Yeah, and I just think in the moment, this is the best way I can somehow help with what I can do, is by building this platform and hope that this will have a bigger effect than if I like just save maybe a few kilograms per year myself, that if I maybe build a platform and this can have some kind of effect that maybe more people can somehow save more, that will most probably help more in the end for the whole thing. Then I'm anyway now going to show maybe a little demo of this, if I can do that. My keyboard is not reacting anymore. Or is he? I think I have to go here out, and now I should be able to hear. Yeah, so I hope you still can see my screen. So this is in the moment, this is like just a few demo data, and here these are more or less are these factual data, but in the end I would like to have here thousands, 10,000s of different kind of CO2 producers or things that cause a CO2 footprint. And you can just now go on something like this, and this is also not final, this whole design, but it's just more or less this is everything emerging. So like the whole idea is also like evolving the whole time. And like in the moment you could like see like 1 hour of using an LED light bulb will cause 2 grams of CO2, so very little, actually, surprising little. And maybe something that's like surprising, like 1 kilogram of beef will cause almost 70 kilos of CO2. Like, I think these are like crazy numbers, like, wow. And this is actually what I hope that this CO2 database can somehow also transport, and people just can like say, hey, like they could enter here, like I bought a PlayStation 5, how much CO2 did it use to produce it, or how much does it use when I like plug it in? And like electricity can be very low, but yeah, if you use it all the time, it can be more or less. Maybe then like one of the features that I wasn't like just immediately available in the guide, how you could do it, was like search, like I could enter here like beef, and I could enter shower. And then when I enter this, then you can see these 2 results. Yeah, that was something that I wanted, that it could also show up in the URL that wasn't available first. So somebody could actually share this with someone else, like say, hey, look here, I got these 3 things, and you could actually send it to someone, and you could immediately see these things being compared with each other. Yeah. And I can now, like, I can edit these whole things here. I could add new ones. I could go into the light bulb, and I could add a new source, for example. Say I know another study from this region from this year that says that it's actually 4 grams, and so on and so on. And in the moment it's really primitive, but I just more or less take these 2 numbers here, and I just take the average from those. I could think of many more sophisticated ways of doing this, but this is not just the easiest, and it's really something that's evolving and emerging. And I want to more or less fast once have something up and running, and then after always be able to improve it. Yeah, so that's just a quick demo of the this thing that's in the moment running. And then maybe like, why did I choose IHP? I didn't make a big study like I want this and this framework to have this and this behavior, but it was more or less, I don't know where I saw it on Reddit or somewhere. I read about this IHP thing. And actually before I saw IHP, I was still once like Googling web framework Haskell, and somehow IHP, I didn't find it then. I found like, I think Servant and Scotty and all kind of things, and they all seemed to me a bit daunting, so I didn't really just immediately jump on them. But this IHP, I somehow opened it, and somehow it just told me, okay, this could really work, because I'm absolute Haskell beginner. I just started to learn it really this year. I didn't know any Haskell before. And it said on the start page, like, this is, if you're a beginner, this is the right place. I said, okay, that's very cool. And then I saw all this pipe operator, and in this JavaScript or TypeScript frame library that I'm using once in a while, there's also the pipe thing. And I know from F# there's also this pipe thing. So I knew this pipe thing, and in Haskell it wasn't. So first, for me, it was first strange, why is there no pipe in Haskell? In the meantime, I understand a little bit more like why it's not really needed, or you can write it without the pipe. But actually in the beginning, I was really happy and thought like, oh, that's cool with pipe, and cool thing that this is like here available. And also HSX, really like, oh, wow, cool, because I write a lot of React normally at work. And then it was like, oh, cool, because I love React. Mostly I love JSX, and because I don't like to write in templates. I don't like it at all, but writing in the programming language and writing some HTML in between, I think that just makes absolutely sense. So I loved it that it was just like part of IHP, and that the types are coming like more or less from the database schema. It was really, really great, because I'm like every week, and I just work 1 day a week on this thing. Every week I'm like changing the database schema around. And so I'm really happy when I do it. I can like see where is it gonna have effect everywhere, in which views and which controllers. So that's really amazing. I really love that. And IHP Cloud, I think it's really cool that I just can like have this project running and say deploy, because I don't want to really do much deployments things and continuous integration. And it's not really my thing. And so I'm super happy that this is just part of this whole ecosystem. I more or less used everything according to the guide. I mean, it's really not much. So it's like these tables, it has 2, 3 other little tables, still more, but it's more or less a CO2 producer table and a sources table. And I was building this user management thing in that you could like sign up and log in. And this was really like more or less a blog. I was building the blog just with my things, and super fast. Everything was working, super cool. Maybe some things that I didn't just find in the guide, or I just didn't know, there was no example, maybe like the search. Actually, I was surprised that there was no search example. I thought this would be like something absolutely almost any app would use, but it was no problem. I could really deduce it from everything else that I saw. Like the only thing that actually didn't work, you couldn't make a get request or get method here with the form. That was actually not possible because of the turbo links or some kind of JavaScript that's running. And then actually I still was like writing, hey, how should I do this? And Marc, like in the same day, he like built this, and it was really crazy and special to really see this happen. And yeah, because for me it was actually also important that these things are in the URL, these parameters. Then what's also special, maybe I really ripped out Bootstrap. I don't like Bootstrap, but that's like something very personal. I don't like it. I think I can write CSS. I don't want to have to fight with this framework. So I just wrote my own CSS. And that was actually pretty easy. So it wasn't really like a big deal. And then I wanted so that the users that enter their CO2 producers, that they could like only edit their own data. So how could I do this? And actually this access denied unless it's the current user. And I was looking on the CO2 producer record if it's the user. So that was also super easy. I was also surprised how fast I could actually do something that wasn't like in the guide. I was like, oh God, if it's in the guide, how will I do it? And the last thing is like validate a value from another input field in the form. Like if I have 2 fields in the form and I want them to be like dependent on each other. So like the from and to, and the to shouldn't be lower than the from. And this was something that first I had like problem because I didn't understand the pipe immediately. And then like, why is this not working? And these error messages are sometimes really complicated. So I was first struggling, but after with a little bit of help, I could actually get this to work. Then what surprised me, I was like, you know, I always heard of Haskell and like, oh, it's this very esoteric educational programming language. And I thought these are only really like very special cases where this will be used. And then I was super surprised that there's such a fully featured web framework for Haskell. It was really like, I never would have imagined. I mean, you can even in the JavaScript world, TypeScript world, there's hardly anything that is this fully featured. It's really, for me, it was like, wow, I almost can't believe it. And the other thing is, it was just like super fast. I mean, of course, with the turbo links and like that, if you hover over a link, it will like preload. But even the first request, like if you like just open the page, it's immediately here. It's like, I mean, it's crazy fast. Or for me, at least, it's super surprising. Always again, like how fast it is. And it's not only when it's at locally, I mean, because locally you can somehow understand it, but also when it's running on the IHP cloud, it's like I enter the URL and ping, it's here. That's great. And I just, yeah, I mean, I hardly wrote any code, and it's great what you can do with such little code. So that's really surprised me also. And then, as I said, when I change the database schema, it's really easy to like have it running again in a few minutes. And as a Haskell beginner, it's really easy to use. I mean, of course, Haskell it's not the easiest language in itself, but with IHP, I think I could like give it almost to anybody and say, hey, look, try to do something. And I wouldn't really have to think, oh God, I gave him now something. It will be impossible to use. And the guide, I love the guide of IHP. It's like always open in the browser. I'm always studying it. And And the last thing, of course, Marc, it's like incredible when you have a problem. I like the first time I was writing on Gitter, like, how do I do this? Like an hour later, Marc was like writing, I think it was a Saturday, and like, come on, who's working on Saturday? And then like the next thing was my GET requests didn't work, and he was like quickly changing this. It's like unbelievable. And also the community and the whole team, that's really crazy. It's super cool. Then what annoyed me, it's really I'm refactoring is actually not really a problem, but it's these database migrations, because you don't know if you're going to really like, you can actually, I once broke in the cloud, I broke the deployment. It wouldn't run anymore because I made a mistake at the migrations. It's not really easy. How do you exactly write them and test them after? So this is always a bit of pain, like, oh God, will it still run? Did I do everything right? So this is really the number one. Everything else is like 10 times less annoying than this database migrations. And even the second point, it's like, it's my thing. I was ripping out Bootstrap, it's my problem. I write my own CSS, it's my problem. But if I'm used to that, I can at least nest in CSS, you know, like normally you have some kind of sauce or something that you can nest CSS selectors, and this is now not possible. So I'm always like, okay, I'm gonna write this thing 15 times. And what I would really love, but I know this is really exotic, I write the CSS myself, but what I would love is that the CSS would be type safe. That would be just crazy. Like I could write the CSS and it would tell me, hey, this selector doesn't exist in your view, for example, or, you know, that would be just super cool, because now in the moment you can write the CSS, it doesn't matter. It's gonna maybe work, maybe it's not gonna work. You have no, like in the views, everything else is like type safe, but the CSS, it doesn't matter. You can write broken CSS, none or missing or too much. And this would be, of course, if this would be there, it would be like, oh, it would be amazing. But of course, it's very exotic, I understand. Then a bit not so horrible, but once every half an hour I have to restart the dev server because the live reloading doesn't work anymore. Nothing happens anymore in the browser. I press F5 and it doesn't load anymore. I don't know if it's a problem at me, but then I restart the server and it's everything running again, but it's not a big problem. Then almost more annoying that I can't search in the guide, because the guide is really big and comprehensive, but then you're looking like for something and would like to search for something in the guide and there's no search. So I'm using Google search to search in the guide, and it's okay, but it's always again like, oh, would be much better if there's a search box somewhere here. Then Haskell specific is like the error messages are not very easy to understand. Maybe after a year like that, this is not going to be a problem for me anymore. But in the moment, it's just like, what is the problem? What's going on? I don't understand it. And then the problem is somewhere completely different than where the error actually was. But yeah, I somehow always got through. And yeah, this string and text thing is, for me in the beginning, was super annoying. Why doesn't this string work? And then, okay, that's supposed to be a text, and why the hell is that this way? The numbers I can still more understand it, like, but for me this is also like more annoying than really super helpful. But I understand that this is the way it is, and it must also be somehow helpful in the end, I guess. In VS Code, the tab completion is super crappy. I don't know if it's just my problem, but when you start to enter some function name and press tab, it's gonna add all kind of crap behind, and you can delete this everything again. And maybe I don't understand how to use it correctly or set it up, but it's not working really good. I hardly ever use it because it's gonna fill up like lines or like just like characters after characters with some kind of records and stuff. And I just want to complete the function name. That would be good. And GHC and the Haskell language server, they use at least 6 GB of RAM on my computer here. And actually, I put in another 16 because of that. So this is no more annoying. This is now okay for me. But beginning, I was like, oh God, yeah, it's pretty heavy. Then what's next for DB, for the CO2 DB? I just want to add something that you can like see a bit more like common consumptions of CO2. Like now it's just showing you like, for example, 1 minute shower, like who takes a 1 minute shower? So I want to be able that you can like say, I take a 10-minute shower, how much CO2 is it? So you can like have a little slider, and then I'm going to want to use this thing called server components, right? I don't know whether JavaScript is actually running on the client, and actually that thing I want to use that I can use, I have a little slider and they will update like the CO2 that is being used for that. I want to improve SEO stuff like metadata, favicon, sitemap, open graph, and there I'm already like, I'm afraid I'm going to struggle because there's nothing in the guide how to do it. And I didn't find like the easy way how to add it to my layout, like some dynamic data. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to soon ask Marc how to do this or someone. Then I'm going to have to clean up CSS because it's a bloody mess. It's like unused selectors, and I just have to clean this up. And also the design is not really finished. So I just want to clean still some things up. But I want to, in the next few weeks, I really want to have my first release, the real domain, and start to build a community and talk about it and look what people think about it. And from there on, just improve the platform. Yeah, so all these things that I told you about are, here are the links. Like this domain is just now in the moment IHP cloud thing, but I want to get a domain and then have it running on that one. And the project is on GitHub. So if anybody wants to see look at my beautiful Haskell code, he's of course allowed. You're also you're very welcome to contribute if you want to contribute in any way. I'm very happy, because I always think projects will be better if there's like not only one person just thinking about the problem. And you can reach me on Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever you like. Yeah, so that's it from my side. Are there any questions? Or maybe I have to look if there are questions. I don't know how.
Yeah, could I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm wondering, so you kind of touched on this a little bit about how it is difficult to visualize, what is 1 kilogram of CO2 and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if there would be a way to maybe put something in terms of something else. So for example, you have a shower and then you could compare that to, well, this is the same as driving your car for this much time or something like that. And it wouldn't necessarily give people an exact idea of what a kilogram is, but at least it would put it in terms of something that maybe is a little bit more tangible. I'm not sure. Do you have any other ideas on that? How to make it more like understandable?
I actually, this is like my second project about this topic. And in the first one, it was like more the idea that you would like have everything in relation to something that you understand. But the thing is, I want to now actually build more, almost not like a scientific platform, but I want it to be more a serious like source and not like educational tool only, so it shouldn't just be like eating a steak is so much like taking 50 showers. It's like also that is like problematic, because like how much is one shower? I don't know how much one shower is, and actually I don't even really want to solve really exactly data. It's more like people like how much. Yeah, I'm really trying to build a database more or less now. It's like really something a bit more technical and less like an education tool. I want for people to always come again and like, oh, I want to know this, I want to know this. And after a while, they will understand what these weights of CO2 are. And not like being a one-time thing, and after you saw it and you never would come again. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but just maybe like in a moment where I'm trying to go for.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. I was raised by a mother belonging to the Green Party, so climate change and every possible such subjects were my childhood and up to now. So I find it very interesting, but it's much. And it's much to talk with people who have no clue about it, being sort of from child on indoctrinated, I'd say. So would you say that gamification would help in getting people to not have a bad conscience first. They should. It's okay. That's good. Eat less meat. Enjoy your meat.
I think
So yes, but we need more. We need more than making them a bad conscience.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like to. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about gamification in such a project for the user?
Actually, as I said, in my first project, I was like trying to have more an educational spin on the whole thing. I just want to, actually, I wanted to get away from like making people feel bad also, because
yes, I know.
It's not like, I don't want to like blame like you're bad and you're good and all this kind of thing. I just want to have like a factual platform for what CO2 footprints exist for different kind of things. And in the end, I think every one of us can do a little bit, but it's not going to be enough. It's really going to have to be systemic changes, and they will not happen just by me like reducing my footprint by a few kilos. It's not going to help.
Of course,
they're going to have to be systemic changes, and I just hope that maybe I can give a little. I can just do a little tiny thing, maybe, and I'm not going to solve with this thing the climate crisis. Absolutely not. And there's going to be needed tons of things. There's going to be needed educational things. They're going to be needed gamification. There's going to need a lot of politics. It's going to need in the end, I hope not a revolution, but there's going to be very many things needed, and this is just like a little thing. I just hope it's more than if I just would like reduce my personal footprint, that I can maybe with this make more than that. That's like, I don't expect more from it.
What is the purpose then? So I understood that your second project is more technical and more sort of a scientific database, more or less. But what do you want users to do with that? Is it like a dictionary where they can look up the different? It sounds so. Yeah, okay. I don't know. So what is your purpose with it?
Let me very quickly interject again, because we're 10 minutes over the time for this talk, although it's super interesting and a very, very, very important topic. However, let's first listen to a also interesting topic from Marc, which are the upcoming things in IHP. And then afterwards, let's go into our groups and deep dive into helping people learn programming and how to do that as accessible as possible, solving the climate crisis, and everything else that we want to talk about.
I actually also wanted to ask a question. No, I'm just going to do that. Philip, what? Like now that you use IHP already for private projects, what keeps you from using it at work? That would be actually interesting.
That's a good question. I mean, as soon as I started using it, I was always again thinking like, should we start using it at work? And what's still keeping me from really using it at work is I just think it needs still, and I don't even mean IHP itself. I think the Haskell language server is not really all the way there where it needs to be. I think the whole ecosystem is not all the way there. But I think what you're doing with Nix and like just having the whole system being set up just immediately and don't have to like care about all these things that are around, I think that helps super much. The problem is I would have to almost teach everyone for like Haskell, you know. I think that's like what's keeping me in the moment. And I think I'm not good enough, and I'm not even the main developer there. You know, there are like 6 main developers, and I'm like this UX guy, still a bit programming on the side. Now I'm gonna say, hey, let's like all develop now in Haskell. It's a little bit strange, but I definitely will eventually once show them all this stuff and like say, hey, look how cool this is. And when I have the chance, I'm gonna use it at work for sure once. But it really has to be something where I feel comfortable and it really needs to fit. And then after that, if the people think it's cool, it will catch on, and otherwise maybe it won't. But yeah, in the moment we're not using it. It's yeah.
Yeah, I hope the day will come.
Yeah,
it's actually
it could be.
Yeah. I mean, if you work with a lot of TypeScript and JavaScript, I mean, probably IHP is a can be, I think, really upgrade in terms of I mean, you already have a lot of type safety in TypeScript, but I think it's just way more fun probably to work with IHP once you are like into like everything basically.
There's really hardly anything that I would miss. The only thing I would miss is Prisma. It's like this database ORM for JavaScript, TypeScript. It does more or less the same like IHP, so it gives you all the types for your schema, but the migrations are lovely. So I would really miss the migrations, because you can just change the Prisma schema and it will make for you the SQL statement for the migration. You can look at it and say, and you can test it, you can run it. Yes, it's working. And yeah, so that's what I would miss. But otherwise, it's really not lacking much, I must say.
We will just copy that from Prisma.
Okay.
Yeah, but thanks. Yeah. So I just want to give like a rough overview of what we're working on right now on IHP, and I think it's just just like a very big picture kind of overview. I think it's just important kind of like to share in the community what's kind of like the next steps in terms of coming to IHP. I mean, there's like the years already like progressed very much, and but there's still, I think, a bit of things we want to get done this year. I mean, first, I mean, we probably can do a short review of what happened since the last meetup, because the last meetup was already, I think it was before summer, and it's been quite a while. We just, and then there were like the summer holidays, and then we moved the last meetup, and so there were actually quite a few releases since the last meetup, which I think it's actually pretty cool. Like one of the highlight features there, which I really like, is the new file storage. It's like one of these features we didn't have like the whole time, but now that we added it, like we're using it a lot, and it's really cool. Like because it was like you didn't see that you missed that feature until we built it. Basically, it's really like handy kind of to use that. Another thing, I think that's been one of the most interesting things we've done like since last year is like the new IHP Pro and Business plans. I mean, that's been something, just kind of, I mean, that just happened recently, but I think it's also a big step for like the whole ecosystem kind of to just, allows to kind of grow the whole ecosystem further along also in the long-term kind of perspective. Because just allows us to kind of invest a lot more into the IHP ecosystem going forward. I mean, it's the coolest thing I think is like the new IHP logo. I really love it, and I think it's just a small difference, but I think it really looks a lot better. Like the initial logo was designed by me when we did the launch of IHP like a year ago. And like we just needed a logo, and I was like, okay, we take a lambda, and like I think it was actually on the documentation in the guides. There was like at the top left there was this lambda and IHP. And I think the official logo was just a screenshot of that. So it was like very MVP version of the logo we used the whole time. And now we finally got to design the new logo, and I think it's really cool. I mean, it's also now in the new dev tooling. Really makes it a lot better, and but we also, but I share that in the next slides. One thing I actually wanted to also mention is because that was like just in the last release, is the new IHP Gitpod integration, which is really cool. If you have not used that, it's actually when you go to the documentation in the on the first page of the guide, when you install IHP, there's like a Gitpod button, and it's really worth trying out because it's just cool because you can code IHP in the cloud basically without setting up Nix, and that's sometimes very handy when you when Nix is not working, or when you are like for example, some people on Windows sometimes had problems and stuff like that, or like the new M1 Max, like where there's sometimes trouble, you can just try out with Gitpod. It's really, really cool. And I just want to mention it because I think that people didn't know that's now there. Yeah, and it's definitely worth a try. Another thing, I mean, yeah, we just talked about like the IHP Pro things. I mean, also generally thanks for everybody who's become a IHP Pro customer. Yeah, I think it's really affords to kind of grow IHP over the long term. I think it's really like a big step we've taken here. It's really cool to see the that the adoption was very positive. I mean, there's been, I think, open source communities where this has not been so positive thing basically, but I think in the IHP community it's been well taken, because I think, yeah, I think everybody understands where we want to go with IHP kind of, yeah. I mean, yeah, now let's talk about what's coming next in IHP. I mean, one of the major things is actually the version 1. It's like what we've been working, well, like we are a bit over time. Our expectation was, I think, to release it in February this year. So, so it's a bit like, yeah, always a moving target kind of. But I definitely want to have the version this year, because a lot of people, I think, I mean, we have a pretty stable releases, but people on the outside typically I think like our current version signals that it's not stable, but actually, I mean, it's very stable. Kind of everybody used it already in production, but I think it just adding the version 1 actually signals it to the outside world. And there's only a couple of things we now kind of miss for that. I mean, one is definitely like the config setup. Right now, we still have the config HS file. It's a bit kind of yeah, it's not. Turns out it's not a good solution how we want it, because it's for deployment. It's actually not that nice. It's better to have environment variables, and for that. And I mean, all the newer functionality in IHP already has environment variables, like the file storage module or the Sentry module, stuff like that already uses that. Also, the upcoming Stripe module will use environment variables. And right now we have like 2 kind of systems there, and just for like, we have to change it at some point. It's better to change it before the version 1 release than after. So that's definitely something we want to do still. Besides that, like one major feature is also the Apple M1 support. I mean, there, it's actually interesting. I had a talk to someone yesterday on Slack who was actually running IHP on M1 Mac, and I was surprised it was actually working there, because shouldn't be working there, but he got it running somehow. It was only that there was some different bug kind of that now showed up, but it so it seems like you can run IHP on M1 Max in the emulator mode, but it's still a bit, yeah, it's not that nice. I mean, it shouldn't work actually at all, but somehow it works. And but in general, like the step to really have official M1 support is we need to upgrade the GHC, like the compiler of Haskell, and also upgrade our Nix packages, because Nix just recently got support for the new Macs. And then we need to also make sure that every package we depend on, like everything kind of so compiles and really works reliable on a Mac one, M1 MacBook. And and I think that's kind of like really for like one big blocker right now we still need to solve. That will probably solved in the in probably next 2 months or something. Just I mean some of these features we just need to wait for, like the compiler to be available on the new MacBooks, stuff like that. But this has already been happening right now, so it's we just need to integrate it into like the next upcoming releases. Yeah. I mean, otherwise on the IHP Pro feature side, actually, like that's also on the roadmap right now. Like next to the version 1 release, we want to get like definitely like the Stripe features out, because that's a lot of people are interested in that. I think it's really kind of useful. Internationalization is something important, two-factor authentication, and also Docker support. I think these are also things we want to have for the version 1 release, because then IHP is kind of full featured. I mean, you can like do payments, you can do it in multiple languages, you have two-factor authentication, and you can even deploy it with Docker if you want to. And I think then IHPs really have everything for version 1 release, basically. Yeah. Another thing, what we are working on right now, some of that you could already see in the couple of past weeks, is like the new IHP website. After the new logo, we also started working on kind of giving it a new, better look. The version, like the last version of the IHP website, which is still live right now, was also designed by me. I think after the launch, basically, and then we just revised it a little bit. But now I think it's really time to kind of give it like the next level of like look, basically a bit more modern and more like kind of just more beautiful and more organized, also a bit more professional, but still playful look, kind of. And yeah, that's what we are also right now working on. I mean, like a lot of that, well, some of that design has already been shipped, especially in the community page. We already like added some of the new design, and we will probably roll it out over the next couple of weeks and months. And then it has like a bit more kind of better look. And on that side, what we've been also experimenting is, but it's been yeah, I mean, this is like just like current draft of the design. I didn't talk to our designer. I didn't ask him if I can show that. I just did that. Maybe it changes still, so maybe that will not be the final version. It's just like what we aim for right now in terms of like design speak. Like we will keep the blue colors and that, but a bit more like yeah, creative way. Yeah, and also on the like schema editor, I mean, you can already see on the screenshot, it's something what we also have been looking into is how can we improve like the design of the dev tooling itself, just giving it a bit more consistent look. There are like a lot of low-hanging kind of fruits and stuff on that side what we can improve and want to improve. And I mean, here you can actually see, for example, all the icons on the left now are custom made for the application. Like previously, we are using like some like font awesome icons, I think, and now it's actually custom made for just for like the dev tools here. And like we just want to make yeah, make what we have there just a little bit better. I think it really can make a lot of difference when we just tweak it a little bit more, because previously it was like really the biggest changes we did to dev tools was just at when IHP was initially open source released, and after that, I mean, a lot of time was spent all on the features, but not really yeah, improving like the design consistency and stuff like that, because I think it really makes the big difference in terms of usability and user experience if we can really like, yeah, make it really great here. Yeah, I mean, besides that, of course, we also have like probably want to work on like the migration stuff and all the technical features, of course, but I think here this is also really like just cool. Yeah, and that's actually something, for example, that we can now do, that we have the IHP Pro stuff, because now we can really like invest in a lot of these kind of design things, for example. Yeah, because it, I mean, it kind of, yeah, not like we can afford now with the subscriptions basically to do that, and I think that's really cool. Yeah. Another thing, what's also, I mean, it's not directly related to IHP itself, but it's like a meta thing, is like on the merch side, we also have discussed like upcoming new merch. Like there's only these IHP t-shirts right now, and we want to like have more merch, specifically because the winter is coming, and like t-shirts are not optimal for winter, and so yeah. If you have any merch ideas, also, I mean, just ping me. We are happy to write. Like right now, we are collecting these ideas for that. So just let me know if you have some ideas for more merch. Yeah. I mean, that's on that side. Another thing I like, it's not a new feature, but I just want to mention that as well. IHP is now on G2, like it's a software review platform, and we already have like 6 reviews from a lot of people from the IHP community, and it would be really cool if we can get more reviews there, because if we have around 30 reviews, we are like in the top 3, and then we get like a badge, like maybe leader winter 2021 or something, and then like this kind of like can show to the outside world, okay, like especially like maybe for companies, okay, this looks like a good tool. Right now I think we have really cool like framework, but we need to invest a lot more in terms of communication, how that is a cool framework, because a lot of people from the outside world probably think, okay, it's Haskell, it's like not cool, I've never heard about Haskell. We probably need to do a lot of more of like outgoing communication at times. That's why we are thinking a lot about how we can kind of get more people into the ecosystem, and that's, I think, a great way for I mean, it's really easy in terms of like, you just need 24 more reviews, then we are there. Yeah. I mean, on that side, thanks a lot for being here. Like that's like the plan for like for the next upcoming features. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer on that. I mean, that's just like the big roadmap. Oh yeah, there's a bit of chat messages.
Yeah, I don't think the chat messages contain questions for you, Marc. So
I only see I hate programming. Oh yeah, IHP stands for I hate programming. No, that's a great thing.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Marc directly? Otherwise, oh yeah, go ahead.
I've got one. Will the GHC update also bring dot notation to IHP, or and will you remove the C# or whatever the tag notation then, or will it remain for backwards compatibility?
The dot notation, just for everyone who's not aware what the dot notation is, it's basically like when you in JavaScript, for example, write a method call, basically like a dot b basically or something. It's planned to also have that in Haskell. It's just recently been added to GHC. I mean, that's I've been following that since it was basically firstly proposed a couple of years ago. And yeah, I think it will be a really cool addition to IHP. In generally, it will not replace the like anything else. Basically, I think it will just be an addition on top of the existing notation, because sometimes like the arrow notation is a bit more useful to kind of, because it kind of has a visual kind of style, right? And sometimes the dot notation kind of, in my view, just reads a bit different. And so in a way, we can just combine it to get like more beautiful expression and code out of that, I think. Yeah, but it's definitely coming. So we will definitely have that. Yeah. Any more questions?
I do have a lot of questions, so I think I could boil it down to, can we have a sort of contact list? So I could write you at Twitter, for example. I think this would be easier than keeping you all.
Speaking about that, next thing, Niels is going to post a link in just a couple of seconds to a virtual office, which is a tool that we built with IHP, where we can then move around and talk to subgroups of the people that actually join there. And of course, it should be no problem to exchange contact information there. Otherwise, I think all of us from Digital Educe, at least, are of course available over Slack, in the IHP Slack. So that's a really easy way to contact us.
You can also just write me an email or like on Twitter. I mean, it's just like mark@digitalenduce.com. Yeah. And yeah, we can also write on Twitter, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Niels just posted the link, so I guess slowly we're all going to trickle over there and have our talks there.
Right. Okay. Then see you in Visual Office.